Get y'all tents off my grass, man. We ain't doing this here. People have been saying this a lot. They're saying that the protesters had people supporting them. They had a backing. People had to be funding all of these protests, and they finally came out and said who was actually funding them on Fox News. Let's tune into the video and see who is actually funding these protesters out in these streets.
And President Biden is expected to speak on the rise of anti-Semitism tomorrow as anti-Israeli protests fueled by his top political donors continue at colleges across the country.
And as protesters are arrested after piling up around the country, cities are being left to pay the high costs of the police response.
We have team coverage. Madison Allworth is right outside Columbia. But first, let's go to Peter Doocy at the White House. Guys?
Good morning. We knew the money was coming from somewhere, right? The matching tents, the professionally printed signs, all the supplies.
Is a part
now
of
we
it.
know that they were, at least in part, indirectly paid for by some of America's wealthiest liberal families. Politico did an investigation. Part of it says President Joe Biden has been dogged for months by pro-Palestinian protesters calling him Genocide Joe. But some of the groups behind the demonstrations received financial backing from philanthropists pushing hard for his re-election. The donors include some of the biggest names in Democratic circles. Gates.
Now we see why the president hasn't said anything about all these protests. Because he can't. Or else he's going to lose all this money, all this support. It makes sense now. It makes sense. You telling me Democrats was feeding all these protesting, all these pro-Palestine rioters this entire time? Man, this is craziness that we seeing out here in these streets. Soros, you're on the money, Sword. You're on the money. Democrats is running this thing. And now we understand why Joe Biden has not said anything about these protesters.
Soros, Rockefeller, and Pritzker, according to a Politico analysis. The Gates Foundation says that their donations to these groups are not active. They have stopped. But not George Soros. You see in December, $300,000, November, $350,000, September, $250,000. Susan Pritzker, October, $3,300. Nicholas Pritzker, November, $3,300. David Rockefeller, in September, $10,000. That would be donations to the Biden. That is a list of Biden campaign donors who are funding some of these groups that are behind the anti-Israel college protests. And that is that some Democrats in Congress say that they are eager to vote in favor of a House bill that adopts the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism as law.
I was one of the co-leaders, sponsors of that bill, so of course I'm going to vote yes on that. And I think it's a very valid concern that really allowed that. I mean, that's an overwhelming vote, a bipartisan vote in the House as well. I think it's a great bill, and I look forward to voting for it.
So it appears that some wealthy donors are playing both sides of this election campaign, giving to President Biden's re-election effort, while also giving to some of the groups that are supporting these protesters who are seen as hurting President Biden's re-election effort. Back to you.
That might come up.
It's a double-edged sword right here. It's a double-edged sword. Biden's own people going behind his back. I don't even know if they're going behind his back, respectfully. I think Biden knew about this. I think Biden had a part to do with it. And there's one reason, and the only reason he's doing it, he's staying quiet, is because, he's getting money. He's getting funded. People want to see him back in office regardless. So they're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to split up the money however they got to split it up. And they're going to make sure that he gets in office. They're funding these protesters. They're funding all the judges and the courts that are suing Trump. They're doing it all. They're doing it all. They're using their money. They're using their power to make sure that Biden stays in office. And it's wild behavior. This is the saddest part of politics. The saddest part. You don't know who is doing what, and you never know what is actually good. Who is actually giving you the good stuff. It seems like everybody is always trying to get their own little bag out of this. It's sad, man, but let's continue.
For the White House press conference today, am I right, Peter?
Yes, right on.
If they call on you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Now we turn to Madison Allworth, who is outside Columbia University, with more on who should be paying for the police response. Madison.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, you know, college protests, they continue to grow, as does the police response and arrests on these protests. As they grow, so does the tab for the taxpayer. It is up to the city to pay for the police response on these university campuses. But some lawmakers are now saying that the universities, especially the private ones, should pay the bill. Mayor Eric Adams here in New York City saying late last week that at a minimum, it should be shared with private schools like Columbia. Take a listen.
We believe that they too should contribute to the cost, and one way to prevent the cost from escalating is to have a zero tolerance. As soon as that tent goes up, it comes down. Do not allow this to continue to expand.
Get your tents off my grass. That's how y'all need to say it on TV, man. Get your tents off my grass. Let them know. Let them know. Know that colleges should not be paying for it. Have the Soros family pay for it. They caused it. Have the Democrats pay for it. Mayor Adams, you probably allowed this to happen too. You should have stepped in way before they started setting up camp. You probably knew. Get those tents off my grass, man.
But we know that it has been allowed to continue to expand, not just on individual campuses, but really across the country. Now, we asked New York City and the NYPD how much these efforts have cost them. City Hall telling Fox Business it's too early to know, but it has definitely increased overtime for the police department. And it will continue to cost them overtime because Columbia has reportedly asked the city to keep a police presence near campus through commencement, which is May 15th. That is why a bipartisan group of lawmakers here in New York City called the Common Sense Caucus is calling on the school to pay, saying in a letter to the elite university, quote, "The turmoil on Columbia's campus is entirely of your university's own making." Going on to say, Columbia created this mess, and Columbia, not New Yorkers, should pay to clean it up.
See that's not even fair. That's not even fair. Columbia didn't create this mess. They had to deal with it. But at the same time, you know what? I'm gonna go against the fence, and I'm gonna say this: Columbia should have been telling them, "Get off my grass too. Get out of here. Get off my property." Y'all should have had police there day one. Get these protesters off my lawn. Man, did y'all see what the lawns look like once they were done with it? With all these protests? It had yellow spots there, yellow spots over there, trash over there, trash over there. They left that thing a mess. A mess. All their grass is all burnt up now. And they just said, you know what? Set up camp. We'll allow you guys to stay out here for a couple more days. And then you guys can pick up your stuff and go. And they just said, we don't care what y'all talking about. We here regardless of what y'all talking about. Y'all got to force us out. That's the only way they got out. Y'all was playing too nice. These people didn't care nothing about what y'all was saying. Tell them to go home, man. Tell them to go home. I don't think that the taxpayers should pay for it. I think that the people who were behind the protesting, the funding, and all those parties that were involved, they should be the ones paying for it. They should be the ones paying for this tax bill.
Now, when we look across the country, since April 18th, there have been over 2,399 protesters arrested on 52 college campuses across 27 states. Talk about a widespread problem. But as we've mentioned in multiple reports, there's a lot of federal money that goes to these private schools. On average, we're talking about billions of dollars, close to $1 billion per year in federal funding that goes to these elite universities. And also breaking today, guys, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that activist groups have been training these protesters that have taken over college campuses for months leading up to the protests. And this is something that we saw in our reporting last week. Peter spoke to in his report, coordinated tents, similar signs, all of this pointing to a much larger, big.
People was training each other on how to protest, how to not get arrested, how to do what you got to do to get your message across. These people are nuts, man. These people are nuts. The world that we live in is crazy. I can't lie. The world that we live in is crazy. But shout out to them. They got something accomplished. They got a bill on the table that is probably going to get signed. Respectfully, though, y'all should have told them get y'all tents off my grass, man. Get y'all tents off my grass, man. We ain't doing this here.